For 5 years, I paid for his medical degree. When he graduated, he paid me back with a divorce. Your simplicity embarrasses me. You are no longer worthy of me, he said. He thought he was discarding a simple lunch lady. He had no idea he was declaring war on the secret owner of the city's largest commercial real estate empire. Before I tell you how I evicted him from his own dream clinic, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe to see exactly what happens when a man bites the hand that fed him. The crystal chandeliers of the Golden Oak Country Club blinded me as I pushed through the double doors. My arms screamed under the weight of the 5-tier vanilla bean cake I had spent the last 48 hours baking and decorating by hand. Sweat trickled down my back, soaking into my white chef coat, which was already stained with flour and sugar. I had not slept in 2 days. I had catered this entire event myself to save money for Marcus because he insisted his graduation party had to be at the most exclusive club in Atlanta. I scanned the room searching for my husband. The air smelled of expensive perfume and old money. Black doctors and lawyers in bespoke tuxedos held champagne flutes, laughing with their wives in shimmering evening gowns. I felt like a stain on a silk sheet. There he was. Marcus stood near the center of the room holding court. He looked magnificent in the velvet tuxedo jacket I had bought him with the profits from my last 3 catering gigs. He was laughing at something his brother Elijah was saying. Next to Elijah stood Tiffany, his wife. She was wearing a pale cream silk dress that probably cost more than my delivery van. I took a deep breath and moved toward them, forcing a smile. I just wanted him to see the cake. I wanted him to taste it and tell me it was worth the sleepless nights. Marcus turned and his smile vanished instantly. It was replaced by a look I knew well recently, a mixture of annoyance and deep visceral disgust. He did not come to help me. Instead, he rushed forward, his hand raised not to greet me, but to stop me. He shoved my arm hard. The heavy cake platform wobbled dangerously. My heart stopped as the top tier swayed, but I managed to steady it with a desperate lunge. "What is wrong with you, Marcus?" hissed his voice, a low, venomous whisper. "You almost crashed into Tiffany. Do you have any idea how much that silk cost?" I blinked, stinging sweat from my eyes. "I just wanted to bring the cake out for the toast, Marcus. I made it exactly how you asked with the gold leaf and—" He cut me off with a sharp wave of his hand. "Look at you, Nia. You look like you just crawled out of a grease trap. You smell like fryer oil and desperation. This is a gathering of professionals, of doctors, and you walk in here looking like the help." Tiffany stepped closer, pinching her nose slightly with a delicate manicured hand. "Oh, Marcus, do not be too hard on her. It is not her fault. Some people are just built for labor. She probably does not realize that kitchen smells cling to cheap fabric. Here, let me call a server to take that heavy thing away before she drops it on someone who actually matters." Her fake sweetness was worse than Marcus's anger. It was a pat on the head for a dog you were about to kick. I looked at Marcus, waiting for him to defend me, waiting for him to tell his sister-in-law that I was his wife, that I had paid for his tuition, that I had paid for this party. Instead, he looked at me with cold, dead eyes. "Do as she says, Nia. Give the cake to a waiter and go hide in the kitchen until you can make yourself presentable. Or better yet, just stay in the back. You are ruining the aesthetic." He turned his back on me, returning to his conversation as if I were nothing more than a servant who had made a mistake. I stood there, the heavy cake trembling in my arms, my heart shattering quietly under the noise of the party. He was ashamed of me. After 5 years of double shifts and paying his bills, he was ashamed of the very work that had put that degree in his hand. I handed the cake to a passing waiter who looked at me with pity. I did not cry. Not yet. I just wiped the flour from my cheek and stepped back into the shadows, watching my husband shine on my dime. I tried to retreat into the shadows of the service corridor, desperate to hide my flushing face, but a hand gripped my arm like a steel trap. It was Beatrice, my mother-in-law. She was wearing a gold sequined gown and an elaborate hat that would have been more appropriate for the front pew at Sunday service than an evening gala. To the rest of Atlanta, she was a pillar of the community, a devout church mother who led choir practice and organized food drives. To me, she was the woman who had spent 5 years reminding me that I was merely the soil in which her son was planted, not the sun that helped him grow. She dragged me into a small alcove near the restrooms, away from the eyes of the guests, but with a clear line of sight to the ballroom floor. Her grip was painful, but her smile was fixed in place for anyone who might be watching. "Fix your face, Nia," she hissed, her voice low and dangerous. "You are walking around looking like a kicked dog, and it is embarrassing, my son. This is his night of triumph. Do not spoil it with your pity party." I tried to pull my arm away, but she held fast. "I am tired, Beatrice. I have been cooking for 2 days straight to pay for this venue because Marcus said he had to have the golden oak. I just wanted him to be happy." Beatrice let out a short, sharp laugh that sounded nothing like joy. "Happy? You think a man like Marcus finds happiness in a wife who smells like grease? Look out there, Nia, just look." She pointed a manicured finger toward the center of the room. Marcus was standing next to Dr. Chloe, a woman I knew only from the stories Marcus told about his brilliant study partner. Chloe was radiant in a sleek emerald evening gown, her hair falling in perfect waves down her back. She held a crystal flute of champagne with an elegance I could never mimic. She was laughing at something the chief of surgery was saying, and she looked like she belonged there. She looked like she owned the room. "That is what a doctor needs," Beatrice whispered in my ear, her breath hot and smelling of peppermint. "A woman of substance, a woman of pedigree." "Chloe comes from a family of surgeons. She brings dignity to the room. You bring the smell of fried chicken and labor." The words cut deep, but I tried to stand my ground. "I paid for his tuition, Beatrice, every dime. I paid for his books, his lab fees, and the rent on the apartment where he studied. Chloe did not do that. I did." Beatrice released my arm with a shove of disgust. "Hush your mouth, girl. Do not dare speak of money as if it buys you class. That was your duty. The Lord blessed you with the opportunity to serve a man with a divine calling. It was your privilege to support him while he ascended. Do not act like he owes you. You were investing in glory you could never achieve on your own. You should be on your knees thanking Jesus that Marcus allowed you to attach your name to his for this long. He needed a mule to carry the load up the mountain, but now he has reached the summit. We do not bring the mule into the palace." She smoothed down the front of her sequined dress, her face returning to its mask of pious serenity. "Now go out the back door. We have distinguished guests to entertain and you look like the cleaning crew. Do not make me call security to remove you. It would break Marcus's heart to see you humiliated even more than you already are." She turned and walked back into the party, greeting the mayor with a warm hug as if she hadn't just gutted me in the hallway. I looked back at Marcus and Chloe. He was leaning in close to her, whispering something that made her giggle. He didn't look for me. He didn't check to see if I was okay. I was the mule, and my work was done. The room fell silent as the master of ceremonies tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the man of the hour, Dr. Marcus Vance." The applause was deafening, rolling over me like a physical wave. I stood near the swinging kitchen doors, clutching a tray of empty champagne flutes, my knuckles white against the metal. This was the moment. This was the moment he would acknowledge the sacrifice. Marcus strode to the stage, looking like a king ascending his throne. The spotlight caught the diamond stud in his ear and the gleam of his teeth. He gripped the podium with confidence. "First, I must give honor to God." He began, his voice smooth and practiced the same tone he used to charm the attendings at the hospital. "Without him, I am nothing. And to my mother Beatrice, Mama, please stand up." Beatrice stood from table 1, basking in the applause, waving her hand as if she were royalty. "You prayed me through this," Mama Marcus continued. "You kept me grounded. You are the rock of this family." I held my breath, waiting. I was the one who paid the tuition. I was the one who proofread his papers until 3 in the morning. I was the one who worked double shifts at the catering hall so he could focus on his residency. Surely now he would say my name. This journey was not easy, Marcus said, his expression turning serious. It required sleepless nights. It required financial sacrifice. It required a vision that went beyond the ordinary. And I did not walk this path alone. Here it comes, I thought. My heart hammered against my ribs. I want to invite someone special to the stage, he said, smiling. A woman who understands the unique pressures of a surgeon. A woman whose intellect challenges mine every single day. A woman who represents the very best of Black excellence. Dr. Chloe, please join me. The air left my lungs. It felt as though the floor had opened up beneath my feet. Dr. Chloe stood up from the table next to Beatrice. She glided toward the stage, the emerald silk of her gown flowing like water. She took Marcus' hand and he pulled her up beside him. They looked perfect together. Two doctors, two pedigrees. This, Marcus said, gesturing to her, is what the future looks like. It is rare to find a partner who reflects your own light back at you. Chloe, you are a woman of substance. You are a woman of class. You are the only person who truly understands what it takes to operate at this level. Thank you for being my equal. The room erupted in cheers. Cameras flashed, capturing the beautiful couple. Marcus leaned in and kissed her cheek, lingering just long enough to make a statement. He had not just forgotten me. He had erased me. He had taken my 5 years of labor, my money, my sweat, and my youth, and he had used them to build a pedestal for another woman. I stood there in the shadows, the smell of dish soap clinging to my skin, watching my husband hold the hand of the woman he was replacing me with. He called her a woman of class. The implication was clear. I was the help. I was the stepping stone he had walked on to get to her. No one looked at me. No one remembered I existed. I was completely and utterly alone in a room full of people drinking the wine I had paid for. The heavy oak door of the VIP lounge slammed shut, cutting off the music and laughter from the ballroom. The sudden silence was suffocating. I stood near the leather armchair, my hands still trembling from the weight of the cake and the humiliation on the stage. I looked at Marcus, hoping that perhaps this was all a performance. Maybe in private he would drop the arrogance. Maybe he would hug me and thank me for the $200,000 in tuition. Maybe he would acknowledge that I was the only reason he was standing there in a bespoke tuxedo instead of a fast food uniform. Marcus walked over to the mahogany desk and picked up a thick manila envelope. He did not look at me. He looked at his reflection in the mirror, adjusting his silk bow tie. I thought you might want this, he said casually, tossing the envelope onto the coffee table in front of me. It slid across the polished wood and stopped at my feet. I reached down and opened it. The words, "Petition for Dissolution of Marriage," stared up at me in bold black type. My breath hitched. I looked up at him, confused. What is this, Marcus? Is this a joke? It is not a joke, Nia, he said, turning to face me finally. His eyes were cold, empty of anything resembling love. It is a correction, a necessary adjustment to my life trajectory. Look at yourself. Really look at yourself. You are simple. Your simplicity embarrasses me. I took a step back as if he had slapped me. Simple. I built a business to pay your bills, Marcus. I worked 18-hour days so you could study. And that is exactly the problem. He interrupted, his voice smooth and condescending. You are a worker. A grinder. You smell like labor. I am a surgeon now, Nia. I operate on the elite. I need a wife who can navigate a gala, not someone who worries about food costs and delivery schedules. You were useful when I was a student. You were the fuel. But the rocket has launched. We do not bring the fuel tank into orbit. We discard it. He poured himself a glass of expensive scotch, the very scotch I had bought for him as a congratulatory gift. He took a sip and sighed. Besides, he added casually, as if discussing the weather, Chloe and I have been together for a year. Since my 3rd year of residency, actually. The room spun. A year. While I was catering weddings to pay for his board exams, he was sleeping with his colleague. While I was sleeping in the back of my delivery van to save on rent, he was building a life with another woman. She fits the brand, Nia, he explained, setting the glass down. Her father is the chief of staff. Her mother sits on the hospital board. When I walk into a room with Chloe, doors open. When I walk in with you, people ask if we are lost. You are no longer worthy of me. You are an anchor and I was born to fly. So sign the papers, take the apartment. It is a dump anyway, but it suits you. Just let me go be the man I was destined to be. He looked at me with genuine pity, as if my heartbreak was just another mess he was too important to clean up. He expected me to cry. He expected me to beg. But as I looked at the man I had sacrificed my youth for, I realized he was right about one thing. I was simply done being his victim. Marcus watched me with a smirk playing on his lips, waiting for the tears to fall. He expected the begging. He expected the scene where the desperate wife clings to the hem of his expensive jacket, pleading for a scrap of his affection. He had rehearsed this moment in his head 1,000 times, painting himself as the tragic hero escaping a burden. He was so certain of my desperation that he actually pushed the pen toward me as if he were doing me a favor. I looked at the papers. The legal jargon was sharp and final. It was a dissolution of a partnership that I had funded entirely. I looked at Marcus standing there in the suit I bought, drinking the scotch I paid for, celebrating a degree I earned for him. The grief I expected to feel was absent. Instead, I felt a sudden cold clarity. It was the feeling of a fever breaking. I took the pen from his hand. His smile faltered for a fraction of a second. He had prepared arguments to counter my pleading, but he had no defense against my silence. I bent over the table and signed my name. Nia Vance. The letters were dark and steady. I did not shake. I did not hesitate. I signed away 5 years of sacrifice, as if I were signing a receipt for a delivery. I straightened up and set the pen down. Marcus blinked, looking at the signature, and then back at me, confusion clouding his arrogant features. "You are not going to fight for us?" He asked the question, slipping out before he could stop it. His ego was bruised that I was letting him go so easily. "There is no us, Marcus," I said, my voice flat. "There is just you and the ladder you climbed. I am done being the rungs." I looked down at my left hand. The gold band on my ring finger was thin and scratched. It cost $50 at a pawn shop 5 years ago because Marcus needed the rest of our savings for textbooks. He wore a diamond stud in his ear now, and a Rolex on his wrist, but I was still wearing the poverty we started in. It was a shackle, not a symbol of love. I slid the ring off my finger. It felt light, meaningless. I held it up, catching the light from the crystal chandelier. Marcus watched me, his eyes narrowing. I held the ring over his glass of vintage Cabernet Sauvignon, the wine I had selected, the wine I had paid for. I opened my fingers. The ring hit the liquid with a solid plink. Red wine splashed up and outward, hitting the pristine white bib of his tuxedo shirt. The stain bloomed instantly like a gunshot wound on the white fabric. Marcus jumped back, gasping. "You ruined my shirt. This is custom silk." I looked him dead in the eye. "You are right, Marcus. I am not worthy of you, because I am too expensive for the price you are willing to pay. You want a trophy wife to stand on a shelf. I am an empire. You just do not know it yet. But you will." I turned on my heel. My non-slip kitchen shoes squeaked slightly on the polished marble floor, but I did not care. I walked out of the VIP lounge, past the ballroom, where Dr. Chloe was waiting for her stolen prize. I walked out of the Golden Oak Country Club and into the humid Atlanta night. I left him with his stained shirt, his stolen glory, and a cheap ring drowning in expensive wine. I had no husband. I had no home to return to. But for the first time in 5 years, I was free. And he had no idea that the check for his tuition was the last thing I would ever pay for him. The conference room at the law firm of Sterling & Associates smelled of lemon polish and intimidation. I sat on one side of the glass table, my hands folded in my lap. Across from me sat Marcus and his lawyer, a man named Julian, who wore a suit that cost more than my entire catering inventory. Marcus refused to look me in the eye. He was too busy checking his reflection in the window, adjusting the cuffs of his shirt, as if he were preparing for a photo shoot rather than a divorce settlement. Julian slid a thick stack of papers across the glass. The sound was like a blade sharpening against stone. "We have prepared a preliminary schedule of assets and liabilities," Julian said, his voice smooth and oily. "As you know, Georgia is an equitable distribution state. That means all assets and debts acquired during the marriage are subject to division." I pulled the papers toward me. My eyes scanned the columns. There were no assets listed under the name of Marcus, no savings, no investments, just a long list of liabilities. Credit card debt totaling $40,000, a car lease for a luxury sedan I did not even know he had, personal loans taken out in the last 6 months. "You want to split the debt?" I asked, looking up. "You want me to pay half of the credit cards you used to buy designer clothes and dinners with Chloe?" "It is marital debt," Nia, Marcus said, finally turning to face me. His tone was bored. "We were married when the debt was incurred. Therefore, it is our debt. You benefited from my lifestyle." "I benefited?" I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "I was working in a kitchen while you were living like a king. I did not see a dime of this money." "That is irrelevant," Julian cut in. "The law is the law. You will assume 50% of the outstanding liabilities. In exchange, Marcus is willing to waive any claim to future spousal support given your current income disparity." I stared at them. He was a surgeon. I ran a catering business. The income disparity was in his favor, or at least it should be. But on paper he was drowning in debt, and I was the solvent one because I paid my bills. "There is one more thing," Marcus said, leaning forward. A smile played on his lips, the kind of smile a wolf gives a lamb before the bite. "The van. My delivery van. The Ford Transit I had scraped and saved for the one with the commercial oven installed in the back. It was the heart of my business. It was how I delivered 300 meals a day." "What about it?" I asked, my voice tightening. "It is a marital asset," Marcus said. "Bought 2 years ago. Joint funds. I want it." "You cannot be serious. You have a luxury sedan. You cannot cook. What do you want with a food truck?" "It is not for me," Marcus said, examining his fingernails. "It is for Tiffany. She is starting a mobile dog grooming business. That van would be perfect for transporting her equipment and the larger breeds. She needs the space." The air left the room. He wanted to take the vehicle I used to feed thousands of people, the vehicle that had paid for his medical school applications, and give it to his sister-in-law to haul wet dogs. It was not just greed. It was a calculated attempt to humiliate me, to strip me of the one thing that gave me independence. "That van is my livelihood, Marcus. It is how I make the money that you are trying to steal." "It is an asset," Julian interrupted, "and Marcus is entitled to his share. If you want to keep it, you will have to buy him out. Cash value plus interest. Or you can hand over the keys today and we will deduct it from your share of the debt." I looked at Marcus. He was enjoying this. He wanted to see me broken. He wanted to see me beg for the tools of my trade. He wanted to turn my empire into a dog kennel. The sheer pettiness of it was breathtaking. He did not need the van. He just needed me not to have it. The heavy mahogany door of the conference room swung open, and my attorney, David Caldwell, stepped inside. He carried a binder as thick as a phone book. The sound of it hitting the glass table echoed like a gavel strike. Marcus jumped slightly but quickly recovered his mask of indifference. David did not sit down. He stood at the head of the table, commanding the room with the presence of a man who knew exactly where the bodies were buried. "Gentlemen," David said, his voice baritone and steady, "before we discuss stripping my client of her business assets to transport pets, let us address the matter of the outstanding capital contribution." Marcus frowned, looking from David to me. "What capital contribution? We have no assets." David flipped the binder open. It was a paper trail of my blood and sweat, page after page of bank transfers, canceled checks made out to the Medical College of Georgia, receipts for textbooks that cost more than my monthly rent, invoices for the prep courses Marcus insisted he needed, rent checks for the high-rise apartment he demanded because the dorms were too loud. $212,000.45, David announced, pointing to the bold figure at the bottom of the spreadsheet. This is the direct financial investment Mrs. Vance made into your education and career, Dr. Vance. If you wish to divide the marital estate equitably, we must first address the reimbursement of these funds. You walked away with a medical degree. She is walking away with debt. That is not equitable. I watched Marcus. I wanted to see him squirm. I wanted to see the realization that he could not just use people and discard them without a bill coming due. For a moment he looked at the spreadsheet and his eyes widened. But then the arrogance returned. It washed over his face like a tide. He picked up a copy of a tuition check. He held it up to the light, examining it as if it were a counterfeit bill. "This is cute," Marcus said, a smirk curling the corner of his mouth. He dropped the paper back onto the table. "Really, Nia? You kept the receipts. That is so incredibly petty." "It is proof of payment," David stated. Marcus laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound that made my skin crawl. He looked at his lawyer, Julian, and then back at me. "Let me explain something to you about the law, since you are just a cook and clearly do not understand how this works. In the state of Georgia, unless there is a signed written promissory note executed at the time the money was exchanged, funds transferred between spouses are considered a gift." He leaned forward, his eyes locked on mine. "Did I sign a loan agreement, Nia? Did I sign a contract promising to pay you back with interest? Or did you give this money freely because you were desperate to keep a man who was clearly out of your league?" I felt the blood drain from my face. He was using my love against me. He was twisting my sacrifice into an act of pathetic desperation. "It was an investment in our future," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "Bad investment," Marcus countered, shrugging his shoulders. "Ventures fail every day. You bet on a horse that was too fast for you to ride." "That money is gone, Nia. It was a gift. A gift given to ensure I would stay with you while I became a doctor. And now that I am one, you want a refund because you cannot handle the upgrade." He stood up, smoothing his jacket. "Go ahead and sue me. Spend another $50,000 on legal fees trying to claw back a gift. The court will laugh you out of the room. You have no paper trail for a loan. You just have the sad history of a woman who tried to buy a future she could not afford. Now sign the papers, or I take the van and everything inside it." The commercial kitchen smelled of rosemary and roasting garlic, a sanctuary I had built with my own hands. I was prepping 300 portions of braised short ribs for a corporate luncheon, my knife moving in a steady rhythm against the cutting board. It was the only time my mind was quiet. Then the back door slammed open. The sudden noise made me jump, my knife slipping and nicking my finger. I looked up to see Beatrice standing there, framed by the harsh sunlight. She looked out of place in my kitchen, her Sunday hat casting a shadow over her face, her expensive handbag clutched like a weapon. She did not knock. She did not ask permission. She just walked in as if she owned the place, as if she owned me. "Well, look at you," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Still playing in the grease. I thought you might have learned some shame by now, but I see you are shameless." I put the knife down, wrapping a towel around my bleeding finger. "Get out, Beatrice. You are not welcome here. This is a place of business, not your living room." She laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the stainless steel counters. "Business? Is that what you call this? Feeding people like cattle? Listen to me, girl. I came here to give you a warning. Marcus tells me you are trying to extort him, trying to claim his hard-earned money because you cannot accept that he has moved on to better things." "I am trying to get back what I paid for him," I said, stepping out from behind the prep table. "I paid for his degree. Beatrice, I paid for your bills too when you claimed you were short on tithes. Do not pretend you do not know where that money came from." Beatrice's face twisted in fury. She took a step toward me, pointing a finger in my face. "You listen to me, you ungrateful little wretch. My son is a doctor. He is a man of God, and you are trying to drag his name through the mud because you are bitter. If you do not drop this lawsuit, if you do not sign those papers and leave him alone, I will destroy you. I will stand in the pulpit this Sunday, and I will tell everyone what you really are. I will tell them you were a loose woman who trapped him. I will tell them you abandoned your duties as a wife. I will make sure no decent person in this city ever orders a sandwich from you again. She was close enough now that I could smell her perfume, heavy and cloying. She thought she could bully me. She thought I was still the girl who was desperate for her approval. You will not tell anyone anything, I said, my voice low and steady. Because if you do, I will show the church the receipts for the gambling debts I paid off for you last year. Remember those, Beatrice? The ones you said were for the building fund? Her eyes went wide with shock, but she recovered quickly, lunging forward to grab my arm. You little liar! I will teach you some respect. She raised her hand to slap me. I did not flinch. I did not cower. I reached for the industrial spray nozzle hanging above the sink. I squeezed the handle. A jet of high-pressure water hit her square in the chest, soaking her silk blouse instantly. She shrieked, stumbling back, her hat knocked askew. I said, "Get out!" She sputtered, wiping water from her face, her makeup running in dark streaks. You are insane. You soaked me. I took a step toward her, raising the nozzle again. The next one is for the face, Beatrice. Get out of my kitchen before I wash the sin right off you. She scrambled backward, slipping on the wet floor, her dignity completely gone. She cursed me as she ran out the door, her wet clothes clinging to her frame. I watched her go, feeling a surge of power I had never known before. I locked the door behind her and turned back to my short ribs. My finger was still bleeding, but I did not care. I had defended my territory. And for the first time, I realized that I was not just fighting for money. I was fighting for my soul. The adrenaline was still pumping through my veins as I mopped up the water Beatrice had left behind. I thought the worst was over. I thought I had won the battle for my dignity. I was wrong. The back door did not slam this time. It opened slowly with a menacing creak. A man stepped into the kitchen. He was not a customer. He was built like a linebacker, wearing a cheap suit that strained at the shoulders. He looked around the kitchen, assessing the value of my ovens, my mixers, my life. "Are you Nia Vance?" he asked, his voice like gravel. I nodded, gripping the mop handle like a staff. "I am." "Who are you?" He pulled a folded paper from his inside pocket. "I am here for the payment, Mrs. Vance. You are 90 days past due on the collateral loan. If you cannot pay today, I am authorized to seize assets." I laughed, a nervous sound. "You have the wrong person. I have zero debt. I pay cash for everything. My credit score is perfect." He stepped closer, invading my personal space. He held out the paper. It was a loan agreement from a place called Quick Cash and Title, a predatory lender known for interest rates that should be illegal. I looked at the bottom of the page. My breath caught in my throat. There was my signature. Nia Vance. It was shaky, a poor imitation, but it was there. And next to it was Marcus' signature. Co-signers. "I never signed this," I whispered. "This is fraud." The man shrugged. "Man. Not my problem, lady. The paper says you are liable. $50,000 principal plus interest and penalties. You owe us $62,000 as of this morning. $60,000. For what?" I scanned the itemized list on the document. My knees buckled. One custom engagement ring. 4-carat solitaire. Platinum band. The room spun. Marcus had not just cheated on me. He had stolen my identity. He had forged my signature to borrow money from loan sharks to buy an engagement ring for his mistress. He bought Chloe a ring worth more than my entire business using my credit because his own was ruined. "I do not have the ring," I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of rage and terror. "Marcus has it. Go find him." The man shook his head. "We tried. The doctor is hard to reach. But you are right here. And this equipment looks valuable. You have 24 hours, Mrs. Vance. Pay the 62 grand, or I come back with a truck and I take everything. Your ovens, your fridge, your van. I do not care who wears the ring. I care who signed the paper." And you signed the paper. He turned and walked out, leaving the document on the stainless steel table. I stared at the forgery. It was not just a loan. It was a noose. Marcus had set a trap that could destroy everything I had built. If I fought this, I would have to prove fraud. If I proved fraud, I would have to expose my finances. And if I exposed my finances, they would see the millions I had hidden away in my LLCs. He had backed me into a corner. The glass walls of the conference room on the 45th floor offered a panoramic view of Atlanta. It was a different world from the grease-stained kitchen where I had just been threatened by a loan shark. James, my corporate attorney, sat across from me, his face grim. He was the only person who knew the truth about Vance Holdings. He knew that the woman who drove a beat-up catering van was actually the owner of a commercial real estate portfolio worth $50 million. "We have a problem, Nia," James said, tapping his pen against the leather notebook. "A $50 million problem." I paced the length of the room, my heels sinking into the plush carpet. "The problem is that my ex-husband forged my signature to buy a diamond for his mistress. That is a felony, James. We send him to jail." James shook his head slowly. "If we file criminal charges for fraud, the district attorney will launch an investigation. If we fight this debt in civil court, the judge will order full financial discovery to determine your ability to pay. They will subpoena everything, your personal accounts, your business accounts, and they will find the LLCs. They will find the shell companies. They will find the empire you have been building while Marcus was busy playing doctor." I stopped pacing. The realization hit me like a physical blow. If they found the assets before the divorce was finalized, Marcus would be entitled to half. $25 million. He would become a multi-millionaire just for divorcing me. "So what are you saying, James?" "I have to pay for the ring. I have to pay for the diamond that is currently sitting on the finger of the woman who wrecked my marriage." "You have to make a choice," James said, his voice calm and pragmatic. "You can fight for the $200,000 in tuition. You can fight the $60,000 loan shark debt. You can win the moral victory and put Marcus in prison. But the cost of that victory will be half of your empire. Or you can lose. You can pay the debt. You can drop the claim for the tuition reimbursement. You can let him think he broke you. You walk away with your secret intact, and you keep the $50 million. I looked out the window at the city below. I could see the construction crane over the Onyx Tower, the building I was secretly in negotiations to acquire. I thought about Marcus. I thought about his arrogance. I thought about his greed. If he knew I had money, he would never let go. He would drag this out for years. I hated it. Every fiber of my being screamed for justice. I wanted to scream. I wanted to burn his world down right now. But I was a businesswoman first, and this was a transaction. Pay the loan shark. I said, my voice cold. Pay off the ring, and tell his divorce lawyer that I am dropping the claim for the tuition money. Tell them I am broke. Tell them I am defeated. Tell them I will sign the divorce papers exactly as they are. James nodded, respecting the strategic sacrifice. "It is the right move, Nia. You are losing a pawn to save the queen." I turned back to the window. Let him have his little victory. Let him think he won. Let him think I am nothing but a discarded lunch lady, because when I come back for him, I will not be coming for his money. I will be coming for his life. And he will never see it coming because he is too busy looking down on me to see the knife I am holding behind my back. The courtroom was sterile and silent, save for the scratching of pens on paper. Marcus sat next to Julian, looking smug and relaxed, as if he were already celebrating a victory lap. He had his arm draped casually over the back of his chair, his eyes scanning the room with an air of ownership. I sat opposite him, David beside me, the divorce settlement lying between us like a treaty ending a war. Neither side had truly won. Or so Marcus thought. Judge Thornton, a stern woman with glasses perched on her nose, looked over the documents. "Mrs. Vance, You are agreeing to waive any claim to reimbursement for educational expenses, correct? Yes, Your Honor. I said, my voice steady. I felt David tense beside me, but I kept my eyes fixed on the judge. And you are agreeing to assume 50% of the marital debt, including the outstanding balance on the personal loan? Yes, Your Honor. Marcus leaned forward, a smirk playing on his lips. He thought I was defeated. He thought I was weak. He had no idea that I was simply clearing the board for a new game. Very well, the judge said, signing the final decree. Divorce granted. Court is adjourned. As we stood up to leave, Marcus approached me. He leaned in close, his breath warm against my ear. You always were a quitter, Nia, he whispered, his voice dripping with contempt. You never had what it takes to play in the big leagues. Enjoy your little food truck. I hope you think of me every time you scrub a grease trap. He pulled back, a cruel smile on his face. He expected me to crumble. He expected me to cry. Instead, I looked him dead in the eye and smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who knows the trap has already been sprung. Enjoy your victory, Marcus, I said, my voice calm and cold. Savor it. Because it's the last one you'll ever have. You think you broke me. You just freed me. And now I have nothing left to lose. But you have everything to lose. His smile faltered for a second, a flicker of doubt crossing his eyes. But then he shook his head, laughing as he turned away. Pathetic, he muttered, walking out of the courtroom with Julian trailing behind him like a loyal dog. I watched him go, feeling a strange sense of peace settle over me. He thought he had won. He thought he had stripped me of everything. But he was wrong. He had taken the deadweight. He had taken the debt. He had taken the illusion of a happy marriage. But he hadn't taken my mind. He hadn't taken my ambition. And he certainly hadn't taken the $50 million sitting in my secret accounts. I walked out of the courthouse and into the bright Atlanta sun. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with air that tasted sweeter than it had in years. The first phase was over. The shackles were off. Now the real work could begin. I pulled out my phone and dialed James. It's done, I said. Initiate phase 2. Buy the Onyx Tower. The notification light on my burner phone blinked incessantly. I kept that old number active for one reason only: intel. It had been exactly 365 days since I walked out of the Golden Oak Country Club. To the world, Marcus Vance was the new king of Atlanta medicine. His Instagram feed was a curated gallery of excess. The wedding photos were everywhere. They called it the wedding of the century, a helicopter arrival, a 10-foot cake that cost more than my first house. Chloe draped in diamonds that glittered like stars. Marcus looking at her with that practiced adoration he used to reserve for mirrors. They looked like royalty. The captions were nauseating: power couple, black excellence, soulmates. Then came the direct message from Tiffany. Of course she could not resist. The phone buzzed on my mahogany desk, vibrating against the leather blotter. I picked it up. A picture of Chloe's hand, heavy with a diamond the size of a quail egg. The caption read, "Look at the upgrade, Nia. Marcus finally got the queen he deserved. Hope you and your little lunchboxes are doing okay. Do not worry, we toasted to your memory." I stared at the screen. A year ago, that text would have sent me spiraling. It would have sent me crying into a pillow, wondering where I went wrong. Today, it just looked pathetic. Tiffany thought she was taunting a woman struggling to pay rent. She had no idea she was poking a tiger. I sat back in my ergonomic chair, swiveling to look out the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office. I was not in a kitchen. I was on the 30th floor of the building I had just purchased under a shell corporation. On the desk in front of me lay a contract. It was not a catering order. It was the acquisition papers for Fresh Routes, the largest organic food supply chain in the Southeast. While Marcus was spending money to look rich, I was spending money to own the infrastructure of the city. My company, Vance Culinary Logistics, now supplied every major corporate cafeteria, 3 university hospital systems, and the very airport Marcus flew out of for his honeymoon. I looked at Tiffany's text one last time. Poor Tiffany. She was so proud of her proximity to perceived wealth. She did not realize that the diamond on Chloe's finger was likely bought on credit I had refused to pay for. She did not know that the champagne they were drinking was probably financed by a loan Marcus could not afford. They were drowning in debt to maintain an image. I was swimming in liquidity to build a legacy. I did not reply. I did not block her. I just swiped the notification away and picked up my gold fountain pen. I signed the acquisition document. The ink flowed smoothly, sealing a deal worth $40 million. Let them have their wedding. Let them have their likes and their hashtags. I had a city to feed and an empire to run. The lion does not concern herself with the opinions of sheep. The view from the 45th floor of the Onyx Tower was intoxicating. The entire city of Atlanta sprawled out beneath the floor-to-ceiling glass, a kingdom waiting for its king. Marcus stood in the center of the raw concrete space, his arms spread wide as if he were physically embracing the skyline. He was not wearing scrubs today. He was wearing a $3,000 suit, and the hard hat looked ridiculous on him, but in his mind, he looked like a titan of industry. I want the reception desk right here, Marcus commanded, pointing to a spot near the elevators. And not just any desk. I want a slab of imported Calicut gold marble, one solid piece. I want patients to know they have entered a sanctuary of perfection the moment the doors open. The contractor, a grizzled man named Mr. Henderson, shifted his weight uncomfortably. He held a clipboard thick with change orders. Dr. Vance, that is a $60,000 desk. And we have not even framed the walls yet. Usually we wait until the lease is officially signed before we start ordering custom stone from Italy. Marcus spun around, his eyes flashing with irritation. He hated being questioned, especially by people he considered the help. The lease is a formality, Henderson. The management company is drafting it as we speak. They know who I am. I am the golden scalpel. They are practically begging me to anchor this building. If I wait for the lawyers to push paper around, we will miss our grand opening date. I need this clinic operational in 6 weeks. Chloe has magazine photographers scheduled. He pulled a checkbook from his jacket pocket. It was not a business account. It was a personal check drawn on a line of credit he had secured only yesterday. The interest rate was predatory 25%, but the loan shark had not asked too many questions about his debt-to-income ratio. Here, Marcus said, ripping the check out and slapping it into Henderson's chest. This covers the marble and the lighting fixtures. Do not bore me with logistics, just build it. Henderson looked at the check, then at Marcus. He shrugged. It is your money, doctor. Marcus turned back to the window. It was not his money. That was the secret that made his heart hammer against his ribs at night. He had tapped out every favor, every credit card, and every loan he could find. He had even done the unthinkable. He had forged his parents' signatures on a home equity line of credit, putting the house Beatrice had lived in for 30 years up as collateral. It was a gamble, a massive, reckless bet on his own hype, but he told himself it was necessary. You have to spend money to make money. Once the clinic opened, the high-end clients would flood in. He would pay off the loans, he would pay off the house, and no one would ever know he had been on the brink of ruin. He pulled out his phone and dialed the furniture designer. I want the white leather chairs for the waiting room, he barked into the receiver. Yes, the ones from Milan. I do not care about the shipping cost. Just get them here. He looked at his reflection in the glass. He saw a winner. He saw a genius. He did not see a man standing in a building he did not own, spending money he did not have, risking a home that was not his. He was so blinded by the glare of his own ambition that he did not see the trap closing around his ankles. He was building a palace on quicksand, and he was ordering gold leaf for the ceiling. The air in the boardroom was cool and smelled of expensive leather. James slid the black portfolio across the polished mahogany table. It stopped precisely at the edge of my fingertips. This was not a menu for a wedding reception. This was the deed to the Onyx Tower. The ink was still drying on the acquisition papers. My shell company, Vance Global Properties, now owned the steel and glass skeleton of Marcus's dreams. James looked at me, his expression serious but with a glint of satisfaction in his eyes. The transaction is complete, Nia. The previous owners were relieved to offload the property. They were nervous about the tenant improvements being done without a signed lease. They thought Dr. Vance was a liability. I opened the folder. There it was. The building that Marcus had leveraged his entire future on. He had poured millions into marble floors and gold fixtures for a space he did not own, and now his landlord was the woman he had tossed aside like garbage. But that was not enough. Owning the roof over his head was just the beginning. I wanted to own the ground beneath his feet. What about the secondary package? I asked, running my hand over the documents. James smiled, a shark-like grin. We acquired the debt portfolio from the private lenders this morning. The high-risk loans Marcus took out to fund the construction, the personal lines of credit, even the lien against his mother's house. The banks classified them as toxic assets. They were happy to sell the debt to us at a discount just to get it off their books. I leaned back in my chair. So, I own his clinic, I own his loans, I own his mother's house. You own him, James corrected. He just does not know it yet. He is currently screaming at the building manager, demanding early access to the penthouse suite for a photo shoot with Architecture Digest. He thinks he is negotiating with a board of directors in New York. He has no idea the board is sitting right here. I picked up my pen. The weight of it felt good in my hand. Marcus was out there right now, probably picking out curtains for an office that would never be his, paying for them with money he now owed to me. He was digging a hole, and I was the one selling him the shovel. Every dollar he spent was a dollar he would have to pay back to me. Every arrogant demand he made was a tightening of the noose I now held. Authorize the transfer, I said, signing the final page. And tell the building manager to stall him. Tell him the board is reviewing his lease application due to some irregularities. Let him sweat. Let him think it is just red tape. I want him to finish the renovations. I want him to make it perfect. I want him to stand in the middle of his masterpiece and feel like a god right before I turn off the lights. James closed the folder. It is done. You are the priority creditor. You are the landlord. You are the bank. I walked to the window looking out at the Atlanta skyline. Somewhere out there, Marcus was boasting to Chloe about his empire. He was probably toasting to his own genius. He did not know that the champagne in his glass was bought with my money. He did not know that the floor he stood on belonged to me. He was a tenant in a house of cards, and I had just bought the wind. The unpolished marble floor of the Onyx Tower lobby echoed with the sound of Marcus slamming his hand against the reception desk. He was sweating through his dress shirt. The grand opening was 48 hours away, and the bank account was empty. He had spent the last of the loan on the Italian lighting fixtures and the custom signage, leaving absolutely nothing for the food and drink. The premier event planner he had hired had just walked off the job after his credit card was declined for the third time. I cannot open the golden scalpel with grocery store platters, Marcus shouted, his voice cracking with panic. The mayor is coming. The hospital board is coming. If I serve them cheese cubes on paper plates, I am finished before I even start. I need champagne. I need hors d'oeuvres. I need servers in white gloves. Beatrice sat on one of the velvet waiting room chairs, adjusting her hat. She looked at her son with a mixture of adoration and calculation. She did not see a man on the verge of financial collapse. She saw a king who was momentarily inconvenienced by the peasantry. Calm down, baby, she soothed, waving her hand dismissively. You are a surgeon, not a party planner. You focus on the glory. Let Mama handle the logistics. We do not need those expensive caterers anyway. They overcharge for tiny portions. We need soul, we need flavor, and we need it for free. Marcus looked at her incredulously. Free. Mama, nobody works for free in this city. Beatrice smiled, a slow, predatory curving of her lips. Not nobody. There is one person who would pay for the privilege of being in your presence again. One person who is probably sitting in her sad little apartment right now, regretting the day she let you go. Marcus frowned. Who are you talking about? Nia. Beatrice said the name like it was a secret weapon. Nia. Marcus scoffed. She hates me, Mama. The last time I saw her, she looked at me like I was something she scraped off her shoe. She is not going to cater my opening. She was hurt. Beatrice corrected her tone, dripping with delusional confidence. A woman acts like that when she is wounded. But deep down she is still the same girl who worked 3 jobs to put you through school. She worshipped you, Marcus. That kind of devotion does not just disappear. She is probably miserable without you. She sees your success on Instagram, she sees you with Chloe, and she is eating her heart out. If you give her an opening, if you give her a chance to be useful to you again, she will take it. But Chloe. Marcus started looking toward the back office, where his wife was currently screaming at a florist. Chloe will flip if she sees Nia here. Chloe does not need to know until the food arrives, Beatrice said, standing up and brushing imaginary lint from her skirt. Besides, this is business. Nia has the best catering company in Atlanta now. I heard she is doing events for the governor. Imagine the prestige of having her serve your guests, and the best part is she will do it for pennies just to be close to you. She will think it is a reconciliation. She will think you are throwing her a crumb. Marcus ran a hand over his fresh haircut. His ego began to inflate again, fed by his mother's toxic logic. You really think she still wants me? Beatrice laughed softly. Baby, look at you. You are the golden scalpel. What woman wouldn't want you? She is probably waiting by the phone right now, praying for a miracle. Let us give her one. Hand me my phone. I am going to save this party, and I am going to teach that girl her place one last time. My phone buzzed on the glass surface of my executive desk. The caller ID displayed a name I had not seen in 12 months. Beatrice Vance. I stared at it for a moment, letting it ring. I was sitting in the penthouse office of Vance Holdings, surrounded by the quiet hum of a billion-dollar operation. Beatrice thought she was calling a woman who scrubbed grease traps. She had no idea she was calling the woman who owned the mortgage on her house. I swiped answer and put the phone on speaker. Hello, Beatrice, I said, my voice neutral. Nia. It is Mother Beatrice. I hope you are sitting down because I have some news that is going to change your life. Marcus is opening the Golden Scalpel tomorrow, the Onyx Tower. It is the most prestigious clinic in the state. I know, I said, leaning back in my chair. The entire city knows. Well, Marcus has a heart of gold. Beatrice continued, her voice dripping with that fake church lady sweetness. He knows you have been struggling. He knows your little catering business could use a boost. So out of the goodness of his heart, he is willing to let you cater the grand opening. I raised an eyebrow. He wants to hire me. Hire is such a strong word, Beatrice chuckled. Think of it as an opportunity, an exposure. You will be serving the elite of Atlanta, Nia. If you do a good job, if you stay out of the way and keep the food hot, Marcus might even mention your name to a few guests. He is giving you a chance to be part of his success again. A chance to redeem yourself for walking out on him. The audacity was breathtaking. They wanted me to work for free. They wanted me to serve the woman who stole my husband and the man who stole my money, and they thought they were doing me a favor. I see, I said slowly, letting a smile creep onto my face. You want me to be there tomorrow. You want me to serve the guests. We expect the best, Nia. Beatrice ordered, her tone hardening. No mistakes. No cheap ingredients. And wear something presentable. We do not want you looking like a ragamuffin in front of the mayor. Be at the service entrance at 4:00 sharp. Do not be late. I will be there. Beatrice, I promised, my voice dropping an octave. And I will bring exactly what Marcus deserves. Good. See that you do. The line went dead. I set the phone down and swiveled my chair toward the window. Below me, the city lights were beginning to flicker on. I pressed the intercom button on my desk. Sarah, cancel my afternoon meetings for tomorrow. Yes, Mrs. Vance. Should I schedule the kitchen staff for a catering event? No, I said, standing up and walking to the closet, where my custom white power suit was hanging. We are not going to cook. We are going to feast. Call the mayor, call the zoning commissioner, and tell my driver to have the Bentley ready. We are going to a party. I ran my hand over the fabric of the suit. Beatrice wanted me to serve. I would serve all right. I would serve an eviction notice. I would serve a lawsuit. And I would serve a cold, hard plate of reality that they would choke on. The time for silence was over. The mule was dead. The queen was coming to collect her kingdom. The lobby of the Onyx Tower had been transformed into a palace of ego. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the ceiling, casting a golden glow over the crowd of Atlanta elite. Waiters in white tuxedo jackets circulated with trays of caviar and vintage champagne. The air smelled of expensive perfume and unbridled ambition. At the center of it all stood Marcus and Chloe, holding court like royalty. Marcus wore a midnight blue tuxedo that fit him like a second skin, his smile blinding as he shook hands with the mayor. Chloe clung to his arm, draped in silk, and the diamonds that I was currently paying interest on. They looked perfect. They looked untouchable. Beatrice held her own audience near the marble fountain. She was wearing a hat so large it required its own zip code, gesturing grandly to the women of the church auxiliary board. "Look at what the Lord has done," she proclaimed, her voice carrying over the string quartet. "My Marcus built this from the ground up. No handouts, no help, just faith and hard work. He is a self-made man." The church ladies nodded in unison, murmuring their approval, completely unaware that the ground up was funded by the daughter-in-law Beatrice had discarded. Tiffany stood nearby, sipping champagne and checking her watch with an exaggerated sigh of annoyance. She turned to a group of doctors' wives, her voice pitched to be heard. "It is such a shame about Marcus' ex-wife," she said, shaking her head with fake sympathy. "We tried to include her. We really did. Beatrice even offered her a job catering tonight just to help her get back on her feet. You would think she would be grateful for the charity, considering she is living in a van or something now. But she is late. Typical Nia. Always unreliable." One of the wives tisked, shaking her head. "That is so sad. Some people just cannot handle proximity to success." "Exactly," Tiffany agreed, laughing cruelly. "I bet she is too embarrassed to show her face. Imagine serving your ex-husband's new wife. It takes a certain lack of dignity." But then again, Nia never had much dignity to begin with. She was always more comfortable in an apron than a gown. Marcus drifted over his arm around Chloe's waist. He kissed Tiffany on the cheek. "Do not worry about the help, Tiffany," he said loud enough for the circle to hear. "If Nia does not show up, we will just order pizza. It would probably taste better anyway. She is just the entertainment." The group laughed, a cold, cruel sound that rose up to the vaulted ceiling. They toasted to Marcus. They toasted to the future. They toasted to the absence of the woman they thought they had destroyed. They had no idea that the woman they were mocking was not late. She was just waiting for the perfect moment to crash the party. They were celebrating in a burning building, and they were too arrogant to smell the smoke. The valet stand was already overwhelmed with Teslas and Mercedes, but the noise of the party died down instantly when the motorcade arrived. It was not just one car, it was a procession. 3 black Bentley Flying Spurs pulled up to the curb with the silent authority of a presidential visit. The lead car's windows were tinted so dark they looked like obsidian. The valets froze, uncertain of who commanded such an entrance. The rear door of the first Bentley opened, and the mayor of Atlanta stepped out. He adjusted his tie and turned back, offering a hand to the person still inside. A hush fell over the crowd near the entrance. Why was the mayor helping someone out of a car? Then I emerged. I was not wearing an apron. I was not wearing a hairnet. I was wearing a custom white power suit by Alexander McQueen, the fabric so crisp it looked like it could cut glass. My hair was styled in a sleek bob, my makeup flawless, my heels clicking against the pavement with the sound of a judge's gavel. I put on my oversized sunglasses even though the sun had set. Tonight I was not Nia the caterer, I was Mrs. Vance the owner. Behind me, the other car doors opened. James. My corporate attorney stepped out, flanked by the president of the First City Bank and two senior partners from the city's top litigation firm. We moved as a unit, a phalanx of power marching toward the glass doors of the Onyx Tower. The security guard, a man named Kevin, who had once threatened to tow my food truck when I delivered lunch to the construction crew, stepped forward, his hand raised. I'm sorry, but this is a private event. Guest list only. Unless you are with the catering staff, you need to use the service entrance around back. The building manager, Mr. Sterling, rushed out from the lobby, his face pale. He shoved Kevin aside so hard the guard nearly tripped. You idiot, he hissed. Stand down. Mr. Sterling bowed slightly, his hands trembling. Mrs. Vance, welcome to the Onyx Tower. We were not expecting you until tomorrow for the inspection. I lowered my sunglasses, looking at Kevin over the rim. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the concrete. Plans change, Mr. Sterling. I said, my voice carrying the cool authority of ownership. I decided to inspect my investment tonight. And Kevin, the guard swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. Make sure my driver has a reserved spot. Right in front. I do not want to walk far when I leave. Yes, ma'am. Right away, ma'am. I walked past them, the glass doors sliding open automatically, as if the building itself recognized its master. The music from inside drifted out, a string quartet playing something classical and pretentious. I paused in the vestibule, checking my reflection in the glass. I looked like money. I looked like power. I looked like Marcus's worst nightmare. Ready? James asked, stepping up beside me. I smiled. It was not a nice smile. Showtime. The double doors swung open and I stepped onto the plush carpet of the main lobby. The string quartet faltered and then stopped completely. The silence that followed was heavy and immediate. It rippled outward from the entrance as heads turned one by one. I walked toward the center of the room, my heels striking the marble with a rhythm that sounded like a countdown. James and the mayor flanked me like bodyguards. I did not look at the guests. I kept my eyes locked on the man standing at the podium. Marcus froze mid-laugh. His eyes widened as he recognized me. For a split second he looked confused. Then his face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. He handed his champagne glass to a passing waiter and stormed toward me. His stride was aggressive. He looked like a man ready to discipline a disobedient child. What the hell are you doing here? He shouted, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling. I told Beatrice the service entrance. You do not walk through the front door of my clinic. He stopped inches from my face, breathing hard. He looked me up and down, his eyes raking over my white suit with disdain. And what is this costume? He sneered. Did you rent a suit to try and blend in? You look ridiculous. You are a lunch lady, Nia. You cook chicken. You do not belong here among the elite. Get out. Get out right now before I have you thrown out. Security! He turned, waving frantically at Kevin, the guard, who was standing by the door, looking terrified. Kevin, get this woman out of here. She is trespassing. She is disturbing my guests. Kevin did not move. He looked at Marcus, then at me, then at the floor. I said, get her out! Marcus screamed, his composure cracking completely. I suggest you lower your voice, Dr. Vance. The voice was deep and commanding. The mayor stepped forward from my left side. Marcus stopped blinking rapidly. He looked at the mayor, then back at me, his brain struggling to process the image. Mr. Mayor, Marcus stammered, his aggression instantly replaced by confusion. I apologize. This woman is my ex-wife. She is mentally unstable. She is just a caterer who is trying to ruin my night. I was just removing her. The mayor shook his head slowly, his expression cold. You are mistaken, doctor. You are not removing anyone. In fact, you are the one who is out of line. Marcus laughed nervously. I do not understand. She is just Nia. She is nobody. The mayor placed a hand on my shoulder. This is not nobody. This is Mrs. Nia Vance. She is the chairwoman of Vance Holdings. She is the largest donor to my re-election campaign, and most importantly, Dr. Vance, she is the owner of this building. The silence in the room was absolute. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. Marcus stared at me. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked at the mayor. He looked at James. He looked at the building manager, who was nodding solemnly. Owner Marcus whispered the word sounding foreign on his tongue. That is impossible. She sells sandwiches. She owns the Onyx Tower, the mayor corrected. And she owns the debt you used to renovate it. She is your landlord, Marcus. And I believe she has something to say to her tenant. I stepped forward, closing the remaining distance between us. I took off my sunglasses slowly, letting him see the cold fire in my eyes. Hello, Marcus, I said, my voice soft and deadly. I hope you like the suit. I bought it with the interest from your loan payments. Now get off my floor. Marcus looked like a man who had been shot, but had not yet felt the pain. His face was a mask of gray shock, his mouth working silently as he tried to reconcile the woman he divorced with the titan standing before him. I did not give him time to recover. I walked past him, my shoulder brushing against his arm with deliberate force. I stepped up to the podium he had been using to broadcast his arrogance. I tapped the microphone. The sound boomed through the silent lobby, making the guests flinch. You have expensive taste, Marcus, I said. My voice amplified and clear, filling every corner of the room. I looked around at the gold sconces and the velvet drapes. You spent what, $2 million renovating this lobby? It is a shame, really, because I absolutely hate it. It looks cheap. It looks like new money trying too hard, and as the owner, I have strict standards for the aesthetic of the Onyx Tower. You cannot do this, Marcus choked out, finding his voice at last. I have a lease. I have a contract. I spent millions on this build-out. I picked up the blue folder James had placed on the podium. I opened it slowly, savoring the sound of the paper crinkling in the quiet room. Actually, you do not have a lease. You have an application. An application you submitted to the previous management company. An application that was never countersigned because you were too busy playing architect to wait for legal approval. You started construction on a verbal promise, Marcus. You poured concrete before you had a signature. That is a rookie mistake. And as of 9 o'clock this morning, I reviewed that application. I pulled the document out and held it up. Then I ripped it in half. The sound was loud, violent, and final. Application denied. Marcus lunged forward, but Kevin, the security guard, stepped in his path, his hand resting on his taser. You cannot deny me. Marcus screamed, spittle flying from his lips. That is my marble. Those are my fixtures. That is $2 million of my money glued to these walls. Correction, I said, my voice cold as ice. Under the terms of the standard commercial application, you signed any unauthorized improvements made to the property become the sole property of the landlord upon denial of the lease. You do not own this marble, Marcus. I do. You just paid for my renovation. And frankly, I am going to tear it all out. It is tacky, just like you. The color drained from his face, leaving him looking like a corpse. He realized what I was saying. He had not just lost the space, he had lost the money. The loan sharks, the leverage, the mortgage on his mother house. It was all gone, cemented into a building he was being kicked out of. You have 24 hours, I said, checking my diamond watch. By this time tomorrow, I want every piece of your personal property out of my building. If anything is left behind, I will have it hauled to the dump. And Marcus, if you try to strip the fixtures or damage the walls, I will have you arrested for vandalism of private property. Kevin. The guard straightened up. Yes, Mrs. Vance. Escort Mr. Vance to the curb. He is trespassing. I turned my back on him, dismissing him as easily as he had dismissed me 5 years ago. Behind me, I heard the sound of a man breaking. It sounded like a sob caught in a throat tight with terror. He was realizing that the floor had not just dropped out from under him. I had removed it plank by plank, and now he was falling into the abyss I had dug waiting for him. The sound of Beatrice hitting the floor was heavy and final, like a sack of wet sand dropping from a great height. The church ladies swarmed around her, their fans fluttering like panicked moths. Someone shouted for water. Someone else shouted for a medic. I did not move. I stood on the podium watching the chaos unfold, with the detachment of a general observing a battlefield from a high hill. This was collateral damage, but it was necessary damage. Beatrice had weaponized her home against me for years. She had used it as a fortress to exclude me, a stage to humiliate me. Now it was just another asset on a liquidation sheet. Marcus stared down at his mother, his hands shaking violently at his sides. He did not kneel to help her. He was too paralyzed by the magnitude of his own failure. He looked up at Mr. Sterling, his eyes pleading. "You cannot do this," he stammered. "That is my mother's house. She has lived there for 30 years. It is all she has." Mr. Sterling closed the red folder with a snap. "Then you should not have used it as a gambling chip, Dr. Vance. You signed the papers. You notarized the deed of trust. You knew the risks. The bank is not a charity. We want our money. And since you buried $5 million of our liquidity into a building you do not own, we will take the only thing you have left that is worth a dime." Marcus turned to me. "Nia, please. Stop him. You own the debt now, right? You bought the portfolio. You can stop the foreclosure. Do it for Mama. She is old. She will not survive the streets." I looked at Marcus. I looked at the man who had watched me work double shifts while he slept with another woman. I looked at the man who had called me simple. "Do it for Mama," I repeated, letting the words taste bitter on my tongue. The same Mama who told me I smelled like grease. The same Mama who called me a mule. The same Mama who tried to trick me into catering this party for free so you could save face. I walked down the steps of the podium, my heels clicking on the marble. I stopped in front of Marcus. "Beatrice is not my family, Marcus. She made that very clear. She is your mother, and she raised you to be exactly what you are. A thief, a liar, and a leech. It seems poetic that she is now paying the price for the monster she created." I turned to Mr. Sterling. "Proceed with the seizure. I want the house vacated in 24 hours. If they leave so much as a spoon behind, charge them a disposal fee." Beatrice groaned on the floor, her eyes fluttering open. She looked up at me, her vision swimming. "Nia," she whispered, "help me." I looked down at her. "I am helping you, Beatrice. I am teaching you the lesson you forgot to teach your son. You cannot spend what you do not earn, and you cannot keep what you do not value." I signaled to the security team. "Clear the floor. The party is over. The bank is closed. And take the trash out to the curb." 2 guards hauled Beatrice to her feet. She wailed a high, thin sound of absolute despair as they dragged her toward the door. Marcus followed, stumbling like a drunk man, his empire dissolving into dust around him. The guests watched in horrified silence, clutching their pearls and their purses, terrified that the contagion of failure might jump from the Vance family to them. I watched them go. The first domino had fallen, now for the rest. Chloe stepped over her unconscious mother-in-law, not to help her but to get to me. Her face was twisted into a snarl that ruined the effect of her expensive Botox. She pointed a manicured finger at my chest, the diamond I paid for flashing under the lights. "You think you can just walk in here and destroy my husband," she shrieked. "You are nothing. You are street trash. My father is the chief of staff at Atlanta General. He sits on the medical board. One phone call from him, and you will be buried so deep under lawsuits you will never see the sun again." I looked at Chloe with the kind of exhaustion one feels when dealing with a particularly noisy toddler. She still thought the old rules applied. She still thought her pedigree protected her. "Your father," I said, checking my watch. "You might want to check the news, Chloe. I believe the 6 o'clock broadcast is starting right about now." I gestured to the large flat-screen monitors mounted behind the reception desk, intended to play loops of Marcus' surgical triumphs. Instead, they were tuned to CNN. The breaking news banner was bright red. "Prominent Atlanta Chief of Staff arrested in multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme." Chloe spun around, her eyes bulging, as she saw footage of her father being led out of his Buckhead mansion in handcuffs. "What did you do?" she whispered, turning back to me, her face draining of color. "I audited the books," I said simply. "When Vance Holdings acquired the hospital network last week, we found some interesting discrepancies in the procurement budget. Your father has been funneling money into offshore accounts for a decade. I just handed the ledger to the FBI. He is not going to save you, Chloe, he is going to prison. And since his assets are frozen pending investigation, I doubt he can even afford your bail when you get arrested for driving a car leased in my name." Chloe made a choking sound and collapsed onto a velvet bench, looking like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Then there was Tiffany. Poor tacky Tiffany. She had watched the entire scene, her eyes darting between Marcus, Chloe, and me like a trapped animal. When my gaze landed on her, she tried to smile. It was a grotesque grimace of fear and fawning. "Nia," she said, her voice trembling. "I always told Marcus he was making a mistake. You know that, right? I always respected your hustle." "We are sisters." I laughed. It was a genuine laugh of disbelief. "Sisters. You called me the help, Tiffany. You laughed when Marcus tried to steal my livelihood to haul your wet dogs." I reached into my purse and pulled out a set of keys. The metal jingled in the silent lobby. "Speaking of dogs, I have a gift for you." I tossed the keys to her. She caught them reflexively, looking down at the Ford logo with confusion. "That is the key to my old delivery van," I said. "The one Marcus wanted so badly. It is parked out back. It is yours, Tiffany. I am donating it to you." Her face lit up with a flicker of hope. "Really? Yes, really, because Marcus has 24 hours to vacate the premises and he has no money for movers. You are going to need a big truck to haul all his trash to the curb. Consider it my contribution to the family business. Now get to work. The clock is ticking." Tiffany stared at the keys, then at Marcus, who was sobbing on the floor. She realized she was not getting a gift. She was getting a job. And for the first time in her life, she was going to have to work for a living. Marcus tried to stand up, using the reception desk for support. His tuxedo was ruined. His face was a mask of snot and tears, but he still had that look in his eyes. The look that said he believed he was better than everyone else in the room. He straightened his tie, trying to salvage some scrap of dignity from the wreckage. "You can take the building, Naya," he spat, his voice raspy. "You can take the house. You can even take the money. But you cannot take my talent. I am the golden scalpel. My hands are insured for millions. I will rebuild. I will go to another hospital. I will go to another city. And I will be a star again because I am a doctor, and you are just a vindictive woman with a checkbook." I shook my head slowly, marveling at his delusion. It was almost impressive how deeply he believed his own lies. "You are right, Marcus," I said, my voice echoing in the silent lobby. "I cannot take your talent, because you never had any." I reached into the inside pocket of my white suit and pulled out a single thin file. It was not a deed. It was not a bank statement. It was a copy of an ethics report from 5 years ago. "Do you remember the third time you took your board exams, Marcus?" I asked, walking toward him. "The time you were so desperate because if you failed again, you would be kicked out of the program. You came home crying. You told me there was a way to fix it, but it would cost $10,000. Marcus froze. His eyes darted to the guest, then back to me. "Shut up, Naya. You do not know what you are talking about. I paid that $10,000, Marcus." I continued, ignoring him. "I gave it to you in cash inside a brown paper bag just like you asked. You told me it was for a tutor, but we both know it went to a proctor named Mr. Jenkins, who made sure your answer sheet was corrected before it was scanned." A gasp went through the room. This was not just gossip. This was a career-ending accusation. "Liar," Marcus screamed, lunging at me. "You are lying." 2 security guards caught him by the arms, holding him back. "I am not lying," I said calmly. "And neither is Mr. Jenkins. I stopped paying his hush money last month, Marcus. Funny thing about blackmailers. When the checks stop clearing, they start talking. He sent a full confession to the Georgia Medical Board this morning, along with the bank records proving I withdrew the cash. I turned to the crowd, scanning the faces until I found the distinguished older gentleman standing near the back. He looked grave. Dr. Robinson. I believe you have something to say. Dr. Robinson, the chairman of the state medical board, stepped forward. He looked at Marcus with profound disappointment. Marcus Vance, he said, his voice heavy. In light of the evidence provided regarding academic fraud and bribery during your board certification, the committee has convened an emergency session. As of this moment, your license to practice medicine in the state of Georgia is summarily suspended pending a formal revocation hearing. You are to cease all patient care immediately. No! Marcus wailed, his knees giving out. You cannot do this. I am a surgeon. I save lives. You are a fraud, Dr. Robinson said, turning his back. And you will never hold a scalpel again. I stood over Marcus, watching the last piece of his identity shatter. He was not a doctor anymore. He was just a man in a ruined suit kneeling on a floor he did not own, crying over a life he did not earn. The golden scalpel was rusted through, and I was the one who finally scraped away the paint. Marcus crumbled. The man who had strutted across the stage an hour ago was gone, replaced by a desperate creature kneeling on the cold marble floor he had paid to install but did not own. He reached out, grabbing the hem of my white trousers, his fingers trembling. Tears streamed down his face, mixing with the sweat of his ruin. Nia, please, he begged, his voice cracking into a sob. We can fix this. I made a mistake. I was confused. The pressure of the residency, the expectations, it all got to me. But I never stopped loving you. You are my wife, Nia. You are the only one who ever truly understood me. We can start over. With your business and my talent, we could rule this city. I looked down at him. I looked at the man who had wiped his hands after touching my cake because he was afraid of getting dirty. I looked at the man who had called me simple. I stepped back, pulling my pant leg from his grasp. Get up, Marcus, I said, my voice devoid of pity. You are embarrassing yourself, and you are staining my floor. He looked up at me, eyes wide and wet. But I love you, Nia. Does that mean nothing to you? I laughed. It was a soft sound, but in the silence of the lobby it sounded like a gunshot. You do not love me, Marcus. You never did. You loved my utility. You loved that I paid your bills. You loved that I made you look good, and now you love my money. But here is the problem. My money does not like you. It finds you bad for business. I signaled to Kevin. The security guard stepped forward, his face grim. Remove him, I ordered, and Kevin, make sure he does not take the stapler on his way out. It belongs to the building. Nia, no. Marcus screamed as Kevin and another guard hauled him to his feet. Chloe was nowhere to be seen, having fled the moment the handcuffs came out for her father. Beatrice was still weeping by the fountain. Marcus was alone. I turned my back on him for the last time. I walked toward the glass doors, the sound of his pleading fading behind me, replaced by the rhythmic click of my heels on the stone. I pushed through the doors and into the cool night air. The humidity of Atlanta had broken, leaving the air crisp and clean. My driver opened the rear door of the Bentley. I slid into the leather seat, the interior smelling of cedar and success. The door closed with a solid thud, shutting out the noise, the drama, and the past. It was quiet. It was peaceful. I leaned my head back against the headrest and closed my eyes for a moment, letting the tension drain from my shoulders. My phone buzzed in my hand. I lifted it, expecting another plea from a family member or a question from a lawyer. It was a notification from my CFO. Quarterly report just finalized. Net profits for Vance Holdings are up 200%. The acquisition of the hospital network is complete. Congratulations, Madam Chairwoman. A smile spread across my face. It was not the smile of a scorned woman. It was not the smile of a victim. It was the smile of a victor. Drive, I told the driver. Where to, Mrs. Vance? Forward, I said, looking out at the city lights that now belonged to me. Just drive forward. I have an empire to run. This story teaches us that your worth is never defined by those who cannot afford to value you. Nia's journey proves that loyalty without reciprocity is simply exploitation. Never bankrupt your spirit trying to buy love from people who view you as a stepping stone. When you are discarded, do not waste energy begging for a seat at a table where you are not respected. Instead, build your own table, or better yet, buy the building. True power lies in strategic silence, financial independence, and the unshakable knowledge that the best revenge is always massive, undeniable success. If this story inspired you to level up and reclaim your power, hit that subscribe button and share your own story of triumph in the comments below.